The Velvet Note's a place where you can see and hear world-class musicians in a setting that's as intimate and as comfortable as your very own living room. What we try to do here is bring down the wall that often exists between artists and audiences. We give you a chance to get to know the artist. You're always guaranteed a chance to meet the artist. And we also want you to hear the music the way that it was meant to be heard. We have the best jazz performers in the world who perform here. Grammy winners, people who are legends in the jazz field. And all you have to do is go right down the street. Here, you're able to see them, and they're right in front of you. They're an arm's length away from you. It's like they're performing a private concert for you and the people you love. It's a once-in-a-lifetime experience.
Hi, I'm Carla Harris. As a performer and as a listener who has enjoyed some incredible shows at the Velvet Note over the years, I've often been struck by how, when people are inside those walls, the issues of the world outside just fall away, and the connection between everyone inside is heightened. To me, that is the power and the magic and the beauty of the live music experience. And it's why I hope that as you enjoy the encore concerts that the Velvet Note is streaming each weekend, that, if you are able, that you would click the donate button that you see somewhere on your screen, because when you do, you'll help the Velvet Note make it through this tough time and be there when we can gather again and feel that magic. So thanks for helping Tamara keep the stage lights and the twinkle lights on. Thank you, and I hope you enjoy the music.
All we need is love and music, and a little chocolate now and then doesn't hurt. Please help us bring these performances into your home without charging a fee. Donate at thevelvetnote.com. Donate. Hi, I'm Tamara Fuller, owner of the Velvet Note, and we welcome you to another magical evening of music in our virtual club. Before we get started, let me introduce the band. A pianist and keyboardist currently residing in Atlanta, Georgia, Nick Rosen's calling for music began very young when he was plucking out tunes at the piano. Over the years, he's toured with Russell Gunn, Dion Ferris, Colonel Bruce Hampton, Liz Brasher, and the Magpie Salute. In early 2018, he joined the Shadowboxers on their tour opening for Justin Timberlake. Nick has accompanied legends such as Jennifer Holliday, Roy Ayers, and Nathan East, and has appeared on albums by Curtis Fuller, soul artists Donnie and Julie Dexter, as well as newcomers like Faye Webster. He received a Bachelor of Arts in Jazz Studies from Florida State University, where his seminal piano instructors were Bill Peterson and Marcus Roberts. In early 2015, his album Step Into the Light was released on Rope-A-Dope Records. The album features artists Oteil Burbridge, Saunders Sermons, Terrion Gully, and Daryl Reeves. John Sandfort is a jazz tenor saxophonist who has landed in Atlanta, Georgia after spending portions of his career in Chicago, Illinois, Long Island, New York, and Buffalo, New York. After receiving his degree from Northwestern University in Evanston, Illinois, John was an active presence on the Chicago music scene, performing with many of Chicago's great jazz musicians, including George Flutis, Jody Christian, Jeff Parker, and many others. While in Chicago, he became a member of the critically acclaimed Sony recording artist Mighty Blue Kings, appearing on the Mighty Blue Kings Sony release live from Chicago, as well as the independent releases A Christmas Album and Alive in the City. With Mighty Blue Kings, John has toured extensively in the United States and Europe, sharing bills with B.B. King, Ray Charles, Diana Krall, Tony Bennett, Buddy Guy, and many others. Kevin Smith was exposed to music at a young age, growing up in some of Atlanta's historical Black Baptist churches. Being exposed to the culture's hymnody, Negro spirituals, country blues, and gospel music would set the foundation for a successful music career. In his senior year of high school, he won his Grammy Award for his project with local hip-hop group Outkast. After finishing high school, Kevin was accepted into Florida State University and received a scholarship to be placed in the School of Music's string performance program. Here, he studied classical Baroque contrabass with Melanie Punter from the Orchestra of St. Luke's and Atlanta Baroque Orchestra, and was under the direction of Maestro Dr. Alex Jimenez from the University Symphony. He was also accepted into the Jazz Studies departments, where he studied jazz bass with Rodney Jordan. He also studied and performed with department head Leon Anderson Jr., Marcus Roberts, Wynton Marsalis, Scotty Barnhart from the Count Basie Orchestra and the Duke Ellington Orchestra, Inga Swearingen, and Dr. John Parks. Kevin also held a chair in the Tallahassee Symphony Orchestra and has played in the Columbus Symphony, Albany Symphony, and Dothan Opera Orchestras. Born in Jacksonville, Florida, Justin Varnes began studying music at 10 on the trumpet. His father, an avid jazz listener, exposed him to Stan Kenton, Nat King Cole, and Errol Garner. After attending Douglas Anderson School of the Arts on trumpet, Justin then switched to the drum set and studied music at the University of North Florida, where he graduated with degrees in jazz studies and percussion. Justin relocated to New York City, where he continued to study at the New School and studied privately with Jojo Mayer. In New York, Justin began touring with Phoebe Snow, with whom he performed on the Rosen Bar Show, as well as National Public Radio's World Cafe, where he would later perform with the pop music band Five for Fighting. Justin is currently a music teacher at the prestigious Lovett School, music director for the Velvet Note, and founder of the acclaimed online drummers resource and the Legends of Jazz series in its 7th season.
Real quick, I want to take a second before we get into the music and life of Mr. Strayhorn and introduce the band. On tenor saxophone, Mr. John Sandfort. If at any point during the gig you look up and you go, wait a minute, is the drummer the saxophone player, or is the saxophone player the drummer? Just, it's cool, he's got the jacket on. I'm the more handsome one, he's got the jacket. You remember that way. Looking nothing like me, on piano, Mr. Nick Rosen. And I'd never like to play a gig without this guy. My partner in crime, Mr. Kevin Smith on the bass. That first tune we did was obviously a Billy Strayhorn composition. It is entitled Johnny Come Lately. And it's not one of his more commonly known tunes, so it's kind of a fun one to start the evening with. So we're going to get into a little bit of his history. He's originally from Dayton, Ohio, but very early on he moved to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and he actually grew up in one of the poorest parts of Pittsburgh. Basically, he described his house as this shack in a back alley. And his father was an alcoholic and fairly abusive, so his mother sent him to live with his grandmother for a while in North Carolina. It was really with his grandmother that he discovered his love for the piano and a love for music, classical music, Broadway theater, jazz, all those sorts of things. And then when he moved back to Pittsburgh and started going to high school, it was really here where things started to turn. One of the most important things that happened is that in high school, Billy Strayhorn was a jerk. He worked at this pharmacy, and he was the guy behind the counter making the sodas, and they're known as a soda jerk. And while he was doing that, he was also running deliveries out, because I can't, my own, no, it's too much, I can't do it. I know, I appreciate it, I don't help I can get. That's why I like to have him on all my gigs. But he was, during this time, he was doing all this because he wanted to buy his own piano, because he was starting to compose stuff. And he would go do these in-home deliveries of prescription medicine, all that sort of stuff. And back then, you know, this is in the 20s and the 30s. Back then, you didn't have a television in your home, you had a piano in your home. So he would go to these people's homes, he would see the piano, and then he would, while he was in their home, he would sit down and play a little bit. And there were several of his repeat customers that encouraged him to start composing and taking this seriously. And they really gave him the push to do this for a living, basically. So he, from there, he went to a high school called the Westinghouse High School in Pittsburgh, which it's a regular high school, but it ended up a couple years later, the great pianist Errol Garner and Ahmad Jamal both went to this high school. So I have no idea what was in the fountain water, but definitely they were breeding pianists there. Yeah, so and while he was in high school, he was composing all this great music, even at the young age of like 15 and 16. He actually put together an entire musical that he did at his school. He wrote the whole thing, the lyrics, all the music, and it eventually in Pittsburgh ran as a professional musical for several years called Fantastic Rhythm. So clearly he was into George Gershwin, so he modeled that after Fascinating Rhythm, but it was a great musical, and he also wrote a couple of great compositions that would be later come pretty popular. We're going to play one of these now. He wrote this when he was about 16 years old. It's a beautiful ballad he wrote called My Little Brown Book. Yeah, so he wrote that when he was about 16. I can remember what I was doing at 16, and it wasn't writing beautiful ballads, that's for sure. He wrote a couple, like I said, he wrote a musical during this time. He also began work on a composition that took him about 2 or 3 years to finish, but he started it when he was 16 years old. And I'm going to have John and Nick play this ballad for you right now, and I'm going to get a little bit into, I think, one of the couple of things that makes Billy's music so unique, and one of the things that really helps contribute to the sound of jazz and really the sound of American music. And the best way I can describe it is, there are songs that you hear that clearly just sound happy, and they put you in a good mood, and they're great, and they have a very specific purpose. It helps you take the load off, right? There are some songs that are specifically very sad, and it helps you deal with something that's very sad. But the reality is, as this is something I didn't know as a kid. Uh-oh, microphone foul.
Everything's fine. Nobody's panic.
I love that every time it happens, because I know whoever makes that mistake now plays the gig for free. So, John, where's your microphone? Is that what happened? You took that away, so you know you'd get paid tonight. Oh man. So, but back to this idea of music that creates a pretty happy sound or a pretty sad sound. As we get older, we realize that life is just far more complex than that. And when I hear Billy Strayhorn's music, it kind of reminds me, if I see a picture of my grandparents when they were alive, and I'm like a little kid, I can look at that picture and I'm flooded with several emotions. Like I'm sentimental, I'm very happy, and I'm also sad that they're gone, and I'm angry that I didn't spend more time with them. It's all of these complex emotions all built into the same great memory. And in Billy's music, you can hear that. The sounds of the chords when you listen to some of these chords and some of these melodies, they strike you as it's kind of happy, but it's also kind of melancholy, or it's kind of sad, but it's also kind of hopeful. It's really complex stuff, and as you get older, these sorts of emotions become more important to deal with, but he's writing this stuff when he's 16 years old, which is just amazing to me. So again, this next song you're going to hear is just going to feature Nick and John, and try to listen for that sound. It's one of his most popular compositions. You'll probably know it, but it'll just be the two of them, and remember, he started writing this when he was 16 years old.
Velvet Note's a place where you can see and hear world-class musicians in a setting that's as intimate and as comfortable as your very own living room. What we try to do here is bring down the wall that often exists between artists and audiences. We give you a chance to get to know the artist. You're always guaranteed a chance to meet the artist. And we also want you to hear the music the way that it was meant to be heard. We have the best jazz performers in the world who perform here. Grammy winners, people who are legends in the jazz field. And all you have to do is go right down the street. Here, you're able to see them, and they're right in front of you. They're an arm's length away from you. It's like they're performing a private concert for you and the people you love. It's a once-in-a-lifetime experience. All we need is love, and music, and a little chocolate now and then doesn't hurt. Please help us bring these performances into your home without charging a fee. Donate at thevelvetnote.com. Donate.
So for those of you not familiar with that tune, it's one of his most popular compositions entitled Lush Life. There are beautiful words that accompany it. Almost all of his songs have great lyrics. And if you want to check out a vocal version, one where you can hear the lyrics, there's several great ones, but probably two that I would start with would be either the Johnny Hartman, John Coltrane version. Johnny Hartman's a great vocalist who worked with John Coltrane. They have a great record together. You'll hear it on there. Also, Nat King Cole has a great version as well. So both great examples of not only Billy's sonic palette, how complex that is, but also just deep lyric writing at 16. He finished the song when he was 19, so he hadn't even reached 20, and he had written probably one of the best ballads of all time. So he started to dip into a bunch of different styles of music, and actually the one that grabs him most is classical music. You could probably hear some of that classical influence in the last couple of songs we played. But similar to the last artist we profiled last month in Charles Mingus was originally a cellist, and he desperately wanted to play in symphonies. But these two gentlemen had the exact same issue, which was that there were no symphonies, there were no classical composers, there were even most schools wouldn't allow black musicians to play classical music, or you couldn't study, you definitely couldn't get any gigs. So both of these gentlemen then turned to jazz, and the jazz community was like, yes, we will take you, come on, bring that amazing music our way. So he then turned more his attention to jazz, and in that process he found basically his idol in that of Duke Ellington. And Duke Ellington, this is the mid-30s, and Duke Ellington's hugely popular at this point. And Billy goes to see him in concert for like the second or third time. This is 1938. He goes to see him in concert, and then afterwards he gets a chance to meet Duke backstage. He says, I'm a budding young composition, composer, and I also play some piano. He says, oh, okay, well, have a seat. Let me hear what you can do. And he sat down and said, well, tonight, you played Sophisticated Lady, which is one of your songs. And you played it like this. And he basically played what Duke played. He goes, but I think I would have actually done it like this. And he sits down right in front of Duke Ellington and plays his composition like, yeah, you should have really probably done this, which is just incredibly bold. And Duke loved it. It was like, wow, this is great. So let me get your contact information. Maybe one day we'll work together. So a couple years go by, nothing happens. And then a pretty significant event happens that has actually nothing to do with jazz. And this, if you guys have been following the series, this happened to Herbie Hancock. There's all these, and definitely to Charlie Parker. There's these moments in history that go a certain way, and then music history is changed at that point forever. And what happened was in 1940, at this point, if you were a publisher, if you were a music publisher, you were writing compositions and getting paid for them, you were under this company called ASCAP, A-S-C-A-P. And they were basically a monopoly. And if you wanted to get your music on the radio, and remember this is the 30s, so That was the only way anyone was ever going to hear your music was on the radio. So they realized they were a monopoly and they started raising their rates. They actually raised their rates 448% over about 10 years. And then finally they announced that on January 1st, 1940, we're going to double our rates. And then NBC and CBS, the two by far largest radio stations, basically said, all right, well, we're going to form our own publishing company and we're not going to allow any ASCAP music to be played on our radio starting in 1940. So Dukes with ASCAP, and it's actually, you guys know that song, I Dream of Jeannie with the light brown hair? You guys ever heard that song before? A little bit, right? That song was actually written in 1850. But the only reason we know of it now is because back then, right when that strike happened, the tune was so old that it wasn't registered. So they're like, hey, we're going to bring out this old chestnut and play it 18 times a day for free. So it actually also worked to the favor of many rhythm and blues artists that didn't have publishing deals. And they were like, hey, you can bring your music and we'll play it. So, but what Duke decided to do was he then called Billy and said, hey, I need somebody to compose for my band because I can't play any of my music on the radio. You know, would you be interested in signing with this company and we can start playing some of your music in the band? And so this is how Billy gets his big break. So then he starts composing songs for his meeting with Duke Ellington. And Duke Ellington says, okay, listen, when you get into the city, you're gonna come into Penn Station. Then, I live way up in Sugar Hill, which is like way up in Harlem. I want you to take the A train. That's basically the only way you're going to get there. It's like writing down the directions to Duke's house. And then along the way, he basically writes this, what he thinks is like a little ditty, and he sits down at Duke's house and says, oh, here's a little song I wrote based on the directions you just gave me. And Duke was like, oh, that's actually pretty good. But Billy wasn't that big of a fan of it. He just kind of did it. He thought it was like just kind of funny. He actually threw it away. And Duke's son, Mercer Ellington, found it in the trash and pulled it back out and said, Dad, you got to play this thing. And from that point on, it became Duke Ellington Orchestra's theme song. They played it almost every single night, and Billy Strayhorn was officially a member of the Duke Ellington band. So there's a famous intro to this song. Can you play the whole intro for me? So this is like a little intro that Duke Ellington plays on Take the A Train. What if he did that for like 30 minutes? For some reason, that's just what went through my brain. Okay. So I never thought too much of this intro until I moved to New York. And then I lived on the A stop. So, of course, when I first had to ride the A train, I was total jazz dork. I was like, oh, I'm going to take the A train. So I got on the train for the first time, right out of like Florida. And as the doors close, the doors go bing bong, bing bong. And all of a sudden dawned on me that that's Duke Ellington basically playing the sound of the doors closing on the subway train. So we're going to do what's basically a stripped-down version of that great Billy Strayhorn arrangement and composition made famous by Duke's Orchestra. Here is Take the A Train. the A Train. Thank you guys very much. So this really was the beginning of a lot of great success for Billy. Remember that his family had been struggling even up to that point. He was doing, trying to do musicals and play some gigs around Pittsburgh. But this was a huge, huge break for him and his family. And he was right at home in Ellington's band. He went from feeling like he was an outsider trying to break into classical music. He was also openly homosexual, which particularly for back then was he didn't want to compromise that. And when he got to Ellington's band, almost the entire band was fiercely protective of him. They took great care of him. They welcomed him with open arms. And Billy loved being a contributor to the band without necessarily having to do all the talking and being in the spotlight and all that. So particularly early on in their collaboration. So what I want to do right now is feature another one of his incredible ballads. And it's the same sort of thing. We're going to get into the complexity of how these songs have all this, you know, it's for a split second you're happy, and a split second you're melancholy. And for him to be able to tap into that so well is definitely one of many of his gifts. And a phrase that I liked that he used was the phrase hues instead of colors. He liked to find different hues. So the difference between blue, like there's a lot of, I almost said gray area. There's a lot of area between blue and green, or between red and right, all these different colors. And he wanted to find these chords and these sounds that weren't so cut and dry, that weren't so just, you know, primary color kind of sounds. And Ellington really got into this too. They like to use, like for example, Ellington wrote a beautiful tune entitled Mood Indigo. And it's to say, like, you know, as opposed to a blue mood, like you've got the blues, or oh, I've got the blues. Like it's a much more complex emotion than that. So this is a beautiful version, this is a beautiful example of these different hues he could draw out of a single ballad. It's a beautiful composition he wrote entitled Chelsea Bridge. Thank you guys very much. There's a great tune he wrote entitled Rain Check. Obviously, and before that we did the great Chelsea Bridge. So at this point, Billy had been in the band for a little while, and the ASCAP ban had been lifted, and now there's several composers working for Duke's orchestra, Duke being the main one, and Billy Strayhorn basically being his right arm, as Duke was commonly referred to Billy as. But he also had his son Mercer write for him, and several other people in the band. And at this point, it's really when Duke's sound started to evolve to this other level, where he really went from being just this great, super popular, super charismatic big band guy to basically having one of the greatest American orchestras of all time. And they were putting out amazing music, touring all over the world, which definitely in the 40s and 50s and into the 60s wasn't happening as much as we maybe think that it was, where jazz was being accepted all around the world. Well, Duke's music definitely was. And during this time, Duke and Billy started collaborating. Basically, they were almost inseparable, writing these incredibly long and beautiful suites of music. They did several of them. And we're gonna take a second right now and feature one of the compositions that was strictly Billy Strayhorn's. It comes in the middle of a great suite that they wrote called the Far East Suite. And this is a beautiful composition that's going to feature John Sandfort and Kevin Smith on a duo version of the great Isfahan. So yeah, like I said, right around this time they're doing a lot of suites. They also, Duke and Billy at this time collaborated on the first movie soundtrack completely composed and scored by African Americans, and it was the soundtrack to Anatomy of a Murder, the great classic movie. All that music is Duke Ellington and Billy Strayhorn, so it's a great soundtrack. As great of a composer as Billy Strayhorn was, there's a particular song that he was never able to reach this level of fame for. And I didn't know Billy personally. My guess is it vexed him that he could never write a song as popular as this next tune that we're going to perform for you right now. The trick is, John, you're not allowed to play on this song. And the reason John's not allowed to play on this song is because tonight happens to be John's birthday. And instead of spending it with his lovely family at home, he elected to come out and play this music for us. So that means a lot to me. So John's turning 21. So because he doesn't get any cake, if anybody wants to buy him a beer for his birthdays, this is a big day for him. Big day, right? Pretty big day. All right. So can I get a nice, pretty chord there? You guys help me with this? Thanks for doing this. I like that key, Nick. I was like, happy birthday. Yeah, Billy. I told you.
He always plays that key. That's on the
All right.
Apartment album.
I'm so glad we recorded that.
Oh, no. Did you really?
Yeah.
Great.
That's live to Facebook.
Yes.
And video.
That's called profession.
Yes, exactly. You can hire us for your birthday parties. You can hear what great renditions we pull off of these classic tunes. We spent all our time on Billy Strayhorn music, didn't bother to work on that happy birthday one, but to their credit, they didn't know I was going to do that. All right, so let's now move on. This is another beautiful ballad that Billy wrote. Again, we're going to deal with this. This is the theme of this particular version of the Strayhorn concert, where I really want everybody kind of listening to these complex sounds that are pretty and beautiful and somehow dark and mysterious all at the same time. It's a beautiful ballad he wrote. It's going to feature Mr. Kevin Smith on the bass. This is entitled, "A Flower is a Lovesome Thing." saxophone, Mr. John Sandfort. Mr. 21, I love it. We've had a great time tonight performing this music for you. We're going to close the evening with one last composition. But before I do, and tell you a little bit more about Billy's life, I want to take a second and thank this club. I thank Tamara Fuller back there for having us here. We've been doing this for the whole year, and Tamara believed in us early on to just say, let's do this for the whole year. Let's make this happen on a Sunday night in Alpharetta, and it means the world to us that you guys have all come and packed this club on a Sunday night. We really do appreciate it. So,
one more thing we want to send Justin and the quartet on the road doing this. So if you have friends in other places who you think would really like to have this in the city that they live in, please come and see us. Dallas, Texas. Dallas, Texas. Thank you. We're putting together options because we really do believe that people want to know about the jazz that they're listening to or the jazz they've heard. So please
we'll take a 15-passenger van or even some Starbucks gift cards. We're not really that picky. Keep awake on that road.
That'll work. That's right.
That'll do it. So this is like the mid-'60s. The Duke Ellington's band actually has never been more popular, even though the jazz as popular music basically ended in the early to mid-'40s. Duke Ellington, and with the help of Billy Strayhorn, was now an international star. So he was one of the few. That orchestra was one of the few orchestras still churning out great music and really still at the peak of their game. Yes, exactly. There's a phenomenal live record called Duke Ellington Live at the Newport Jazz Festival. Get that record if you don't have it. That's it, yeah. So it's like, that mid to late 60s period. Well, it happens to be, sadly, right around then, in 1964, when Billy is diagnosed with cancer. And so he is about to spend his last few years with the band. And this, as you might imagine, is devastating for Duke and the entire band. After Billy's passing, they did a couple of records in Billy's honor. One, probably the most famous, is a record called "And His Mother Called Him Bill." It's a phenomenal record and a tribute to Billy's music. But before Billy's passing, Duke, who had just all the connections in the entire world, he was a superstar. When he found out that Billy had cancer, he connected him to some of the best doctors in the country. There was a group of them called the Upper Manhattan Medical Group, and that was the team of doctors that took care of Billy for a long time. And while in the hospital, Billy was still writing music and still sending it to Duke Ellington. One of his most famous compositions, or one of his best compositions, is a great tune entitled "Blood Count." It was the last song he ever wrote, and he wrote it for Duke's orchestra. But we're going to close the night out with a tune he wrote in honor for all the people trying to take good care of him over his last years. This is aptly titled UMMG for the Upper Manhattan Medical Group. So thanks again for spending the night with us. Hope you guys enjoyed learning something about Billy Strayhorn's music. Thanks again.